Several fighters have broken off from the main group. Come with me.
This is easily one of the most challenging restorations that RetroBlasting has ever attempted. Due to the level of damage in the battery compartment of this TIE fighter, we had to engineer a basic electronic solution, and I'm going to show you in a second exactly what we did. This is the white 1978 TIE fighter from Kenner. We got this from a co-worker of mine who dropped it off in my lap and said that her husband didn't want it anymore, and it was in bad shape. So let me show you the first step in what we did to resurrect this TIE fighter. The first step in this process was removing the original light bulb, which was dead. So we had to get the electronics out of the TIE fighter. That's a little difficult because the light bulb and the wiring harness are actually blocked in by a small wall right here on the back of the panel. So you can't actually pull the light bulb out. At the factory, the light bulb was inserted first, and then a panel, which has the cannons sculpted on it, was epoxied onto the fuselage of the toy. So what we had to do was, through careful use of an X-Acto knife and some patience, we had to get this panel off in order to get a replacement wiring harness on the toy, which I acquired from another TIE fighter. I used a two-part epoxy from Loctite to put the panel back on the front of the TIE fighter. You want to put the epoxy on there, then you want to let it set for 24 hours. I used some clamps to make sure that it stayed in place, and it looks like the results are pretty decent. I mean, again, this is a very battered TIE fighter, so we're not going to try and make it 100% perfect aesthetically. We're just trying to get it functional again, and I think so far we're succeeding. So we've got the bulb in there, we've got the wiring here. The next step is going to be taping this wiring down like it was originally. The original interior had white tape. I've got some white electrical tape, so let's get this taped down, and then we'll start the process of reassembly. Alright, good. Now that that's taped down and out of the way, that means that the wiring won't get in the way of the seat and all the internals that we're going to be putting back into the ship. Alright, so let's make sure these are out of the way. The next fix that we did for this was the battery compartment. There was a marked difference between the battery compartment of the later TIE fighters and this early version. The later ones had a copper shield on the back that acted as the battery contacts, and it was permanently sort of press fit in with some snap bolts, or whatever you want to call these kind of press fitted bolts. So it was permanent, didn't come out. The original TIE fighter actually had a pair of contact springs, and this TIE fighter no longer had them. They must have truly rusted out and fallen off, because as you can see, I can remove these very easily right here. Now these are not original. We fashioned these by soldering together two new battery contact springs with a piece of copper wire. And that wasn't the easiest thing to do, and it took a little bit of adjustment and resoldering and disassembly and reassembly, but we finally got it to a place where it works very nicely. So now let's get this thing back together, and it's not going to be easy. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get that seat in place, just like before. We want the seat to go in through the cockpit. And then we're going to set it up on these rails. I'm going to leave this new piece out for a minute since we don't need to worry about it. Alright, so now that that's in place, we can put our engine on. Unlike the later TIE fighters, the engine on the original white TIE fighter did not have a zip tie around it. And I want to really thank the subscribers who commented on the previous video that alerted me to that fact, because I wasn't aware of some of the subtle differences. I had not noticed them. I always make sure to have this vent on the motor facing upward. It's just a habit of mine. I don't think it's necessary, but I like to have it that way. So venting upward. So black is going to go toward the tab on the back. I always go to the leftmost, and then the red will be going towards the clip on the bottom of the battery compartment, and you can't get that wrong because the red won't fit up here and the black won't fit down there. Now that these are together, we're going to wire up the engine. All right, that's one. And that's two. Make sure we have our windshield. We're going to key it just like we did the Darth Vader TIE Fighter. We're going to key it to the bottom, like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over so that the motor can sit there comfortably. Okay. Remember to drop your buttons in. So your buttons are going to work like this. You're going to have your cylinder and your button. There's the button right there. Cylinder goes through. Attaches like that. It's keyed. Then you drop in your spring. Then you flip this over. And you lay it in place, just like the Darth Vader TIE Fighter. This is where the wiring gets in the way. So we're going to flip it this way. Let's see if we can't get the wiring to cooperate. It doesn't like something. It must be a green wire. There it goes. Must have been the windshield notch that was giving it fits. Alright, so now with the ball locked down, we can start putting the screws back in. I think what I like about this restoration is that we're not going to be doing a lot of extensive re-stickering. When we determined that the ship was so far gone aesthetically on the outside that a retro-bright process would only, help it in certain areas and not get rid of a lot of this staining. And the fact that the TIE Fighter decals are so integral to the look of the ship, and that these decals, while they were in bad shape, they were still on the wings. We didn't want to destroy those stickers in favor of others' reproductions. And so what we've decided to do instead is just leave this TIE Fighter a little worse for wear, but in a good way, because it has a history, and we're going to preserve that history. Alright, the cockpit is now together. Last step involves putting in our makeshift battery contacts on the back side of the battery compartment. Get it lined up. The funny thing was, when we got the electronics done, we couldn't get the light to work unless the batteries were actually reversed in the cockpit, which tells me that either the TIE Fighter these electronics came out of was a later TIE Fighter and they reversed the polarity or the circuit flow in later TIE Fighters, or if it's just some quirk of this particular harness. But you actually have to follow the instructions backwards for this one to get the light to work. So in this case, positive to negative on top. It looks like this lip on the there we go. That's positive, and then negative. Not bad for a little MacGyvering. This TIE Fighter has been through so much. We thought, it does deserve a pilot. And we just recently acquired this very worn TIE Fighter pilot from the vintage Kenner line He's got some loose joints. He's kind of got some scuffs. He looks like the perfect companion for this TIE fighter. You know, I think they need each other. So he will become the permanent pilot for this particular TIE fighter. So thanks for watching this video, and we will see you on the next restoration.